This is an initial introduction to LandMentor software. It's the first of many training videos. This neighborhood that you're looking at now came directly from the technology. It's of the Chandler little 19-acre site in Frankfort, Kentucky. LandMentor isn't about software, it's about knowledge. It's about how we can take and create a general knowledge base for the land. This set of instructions is not meant to replace reading the manuals. You still have to read the manuals before you start taking these training videos. These are the first 5 objectives that you'll learn from this first lesson. When you first open up LandMentor, you should see a window that looks like this. If the buttons on the right side don't look like this and they're not proportionally the same, change the resolution of your screen. If it's on very high resolution, the scale of those buttons will not be right. So generally you can go up to about 2500 dpi on the width. The working area is white. We show it in tan here, and that's where you're going to be doing all of your work. The output areas on the upper right with big enough lettering to be easily read. There's 8 main functions that change the sub-functions below, the 8 sub-functions below. Buttons. They're designed to make the use of the buttons clear and concise. They have very simple graphics. Others will show you how new points are created. So for example, green is a new point, orange is a point you've snapped to. Others will report how selective points relate to others. So what's the distance between this line you snap to and this point? The opening menu concentrates on design, surveying, engineering, and precision mapping coordinate geometry functions. They're arcs, groups, which you'll learn in a minute, and they all are coordinate geometry functions. While the right set of the buttons are more automation and reporting features. On startup, the build date will show. This is very important because LandMentor will always be a product that's continuously improved and growing over the years, and we need to know what the date is. So the drafting is essentially an extension of the coordinate geometry. Same thing with arcs. They're an extension of the geometry, except they specialize in curved property line. Note that LandMentor cannot draw a non-circular curve. AutoCAD can, but in land development terms, we are dealing with property lines that are arcs or curves. There are no non-circular definitions. If a center point of a curve is not within 6 decimal places of the 2 endpoints, it will not draw it. So it's virtually impossible to have a bad curve. If a curve is imported from CAD and it disappears, it was a bad curve to begin with. Groups. If you're familiar with AutoCAD blocks, think of these as a very supercharged, high-powered block. So it's the power to design, it's the power to create many, many more intelligent elements of the drawing. Surfaces. We do not live in a world of line and arcs. Look around you. We live in a world of surfaces, and there are textures and there's colors. And so what we're doing is not creating a drawing of lines and arcs. We're in the business of land surveyors figuring out what surfaces are there. Is it a cornfield? That's a surface. What's the ownership? Or as we're designing and we're creating new surfaces, what are those surfaces? How do they relate? What's their impact? Don't want you to rely on streets and arcs to automate too much, because that replicates. So this is all about not using these routines for everything, but using them sparsely to create when needed. So pivot, perpendicular, inscribed are non-lot geometry functions. They're more surveying applications, and so a lot of that is in the lot menu. Reporting, that accesses the surface intelligence. Information is reported to not only you as you're working on it to see how efficient your work is or efficient the design is, but if you're a city, to start analyzing how inefficient the design is for other applications. Top bar menu, file and plotting is accessed, typical of other packages. Secondary functions or more minor functions that aren't used as much are going to be under the edit. Topography, LandMentor creates all of the digital terrain model is going to be internal and kept full time. So the contours are generated on the fly, and you can use any contour elevation interval you want anytime you want. Earthwork, streets, and utilities are through the civil. Virtual reality and 3Ds through the VR 3D menu. The zoom and pan functions are in the middle. The elements and the text and line type and color and line width of the layer and the layer selection are all on the right. The scale is for external plots only, and the fill accesses the fill menu to assign colors and textures and intelligence. Under Learn, there's a hotkeys menu that shows you the hotkey for functions. These are case sensitive, so if you press like P to pan and nothing's happening, look at your caps lock. If the caps lock key is on, that will no longer work as prescribed. I would recommend reassigning the caps lock key to a different function. Most functions that take time will give you the guy pacing back and forth. Cautionary things that you should be aware of but will work, you'll get the caution message. It's not a critical error. The critical error would be shown below. It's not going to calculate it because there is no answer, or the answer makes no sense. As far as data structures, all data structures are land surveying based, nothing else. There's only lines and arcs. Polylines, they're to be avoided. There's no place for them in land ownership or land surveying. In fact, we can't run an area on a polyline. It won't let you. So the three data structures are shown here are simply lines, curves, and text. Each drawing entity, each line and curve and text would have a layer, and if there were polylines, it also would be true. Layer, pen color, and line width. In CAD, color represents width. In LandMentor, what you see is what you get. Each line and curve can be annotated. So every screen refresh, it's actually recomputing every dimension you see. Those dimensions do not exist. That's intelligence built into the lines and arcs. The only text that exists is the lot numbers. Each point end of a line and an arc is a unique location, northing, easting, and elevation on Earth. It also contains a description. Where does it get the description? It gets it from the layer name. There are no point numbers. There are no points stacked on each other. There's no point replication. You have 50 lines going to 1 point in memory, you have 1 point in memory. In CAD, if you have 50 lines going to the same location, you have 50 points in memory. Point numbers served their purposes 40, 30 years ago when there wasn't much data being generated. What do these lines and curves and everything represent? They represent ownership, physical objects, easements, and items for the drawing. They always represent the physical limits or perimeter of these things. So what if you can define everything? What is it? It's a lot, it's a roof, it's a driveway, it's the front setback, that streetscape, the sidewalk. Because once you create these lines and curves, you can then create the intelligence. The intelligence is then textured in color. So now you don't need Photoshop to embellish a drawing. But once you create this intelligence, you could still see what's there, and there's no lines there. Look around you. Where's there are lines and arcs? They don't exist. So what you're looking at is man-made world that we live in. And when we replicate that, that's power. For most purposes, you're going to still need the lines and arcs to communicate and to record the drawing. So the only things that are not tied to coordinate geometry is the very little text. Initial site data is going to come from raw data from a field instrument, coordinate data from a field instrument, an existing file, either CAD or GIS, a drawing they have to hand enter. For this example, we're going to use the most common format, which would be coordinate data from the field. And you'll go into day 1 of training, and you'll see an example fieldwork file. That is a text file. Choose that file format, and that will show up. You'll select English. A little prompt will come up once you select that file. And you'll say the points are protected, because you don't want those points messed with by the design people. Those are legal field points. And you'll see an initial screen that shows the floating points. They're not tied to any drawing instruction. So the original coordinate file looks like this, the data that was shot in the field. My question to you is, what is the least important of all of this? The least important is the point number. Just think, there are no point numbers in this world. That was something that was created from the 1970s. It's the point description. So under Edit, you would use Limit by Description, and you would move from the left window to the right window the point descriptions that you want to use, and hit Done. And those would show up in red. You would select the layer you want to work with, and then in this case the center line of a creek, and then select Make Line under Geometry, and you'll use the 3 buttons on your mouse to create this. So this is how we eliminate excess prompts. The output area will show you the location of the mouse pointer, and you can see the left button creates a new point. We don't want to do that because we want to use existing points. The middle button starts a new line, but we haven't started a line yet. So by default we'll have that. And the right button goes to the nearest point. These are existing points. So you want to hit the right button of your mouse. So this is like getting how you get used to using the mouse. We're going to use all 3 buttons to make things easy. Again, the 3 buttons are used. Left creates a new point. Right snaps to an existing point, and the middle will create a new line. So what you'll do is use the right button, and it will only snap to center line of creek points. Who cares what point number it is? Then go to Edit, use the descriptions, and then move anything that has iron rod to the right window, take center line out of it, and then you only then go to layer 0, the boundary layer, and snap to the boundary points that show up.